The near silence of the modern supplement industry on niacin, a molecule with over 70 years of clinical history, is both conspicuous and instructive. While NR, nicotinamide riboside, and NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, dominate longevity marketing and supplement shelves with premium price tags and boutique branding, niacin, the humble and often misunderstood vitamin B3, is increasingly relegated to obscurity. This shift is not the result of scientific inferiority. In fact, when judged by controlled trials, therapeutic breadth, and known mechanisms of action, niacin frequently outperforms or at least matches NR and NMN, especially in system-wide effects like lipid modulation, inflammation reduction, and immune regulation. The marginalization of niacin appears less about molecular efficacy and more about economic narrative, what might be called a strategic obsolescence crafted by a profit-driven industry hungry for intellectual property, novel claims, and premium margins. At the heart of the issue is the commodification of novelty. Niacin, whose patent life expired decades ago, cannot be owned, branded, or marketed as cutting-edge. It is inexpensive, well-characterized, and clinically validated, but precisely because of that, it offers little commercial leverage. No supplement company can charge $80 a month for plain niacin without raising eyebrows. NR and NMN, on the other hand, exist in a gray zone between pharmaceutical and supplement molecules with biosynthetic complexity and emerging data that allow for next-generation positioning. This allows companies to build elaborate marketing frameworks around them, bolstered by selective science and fear of missing out longevity narratives. The incentive to amplify their benefits while ignoring niacins is strong, and it shows. Despite niacin's well-documented effects on cardiovascular health, NAD, restoration, inflammation control, and even mitochondrial function, it is almost never mentioned in the same breath as NR or NMN by companies promoting NAD enhancement. Clinical trials have demonstrated that high-dose niacin raises NAD levels in blood and liver comparably to NR in human studies, sometimes more robustly. Niacin also activates the price handler pathway, bypassing the salvage route that becomes dysfunctional with aging or inflammation, something NR and NMN cannot do. Niacin also engages GPR109A, providing potent anti-inflammatory and lipid regulatory effects that NR and NMN simply do not offer. Yet these advantages are rarely, if ever, acknowledged by NAD-focused supplement brands. The omission is telling. One reason is the industry's dependence on intellectual property. NR is linked to patents held by Chromadex and licensed by several major supplement producers, giving it a commercially defensible edge. NMN, although less tightly held, was for a time marketed as a unique molecule requiring special production and stabilization, justifying high costs and exclusive formulations. Niacin, in contrast, is available generically and has been studied for decades, meaning it cannot be rebranded or owned in any meaningful way. In a market where differentiation drives sales, niacin's familiarity becomes a liability, not an asset. Additionally, niacin's side effects, especially the flush, have been framed as disqualifying, even though they are controllable and mechanistically meaningful. The flush reflects activation of GPR109A, a receptor involved in anti-inflammatory signaling and lipid metabolism. While extended-release formulations reduce this effect, the industry has used it as a reason to avoid niacin entirely in favor of flush-free alternatives. This framing is misleading. Non-flushing versions of niacin, such as inositol hexanocotinate, do not convert well to NAD and often lack therapeutic efficacy. Yet these are sometimes offered to discredit niacin altogether, reinforcing a caricature of it as outdated, uncomfortable, or pharmacologically messy. Meanwhile, the modest and inconsistent NAD boosting effects of NR and NMN are presented as cleaner and more advanced, even when human data are underwhelming. Another subtle factor is consumer psychology. Niacin's association with older cardiovascular medicine, especially statin-era lipid therapy, makes it seem less glamorous. In contrast, NR and NMN benefit from being new, with links to sirtuins, biohacking, and Nobel Prize-adjacent pathways. This perception shapes consumer demand, regardless of evidence. Supplement companies, attuned to this aesthetic, naturally lean toward molecules that align with aspirational branding, tech-forward health, and longevity trends. Niacin, despite being functionally equivalent or superior in some pathways, does not fit that mold. Importantly, None of this critique is meant to discredit NR or NMN entirely. Both have legitimate applications, particularly in tissues where salvage pathway enzymes are active and where high-dose niacin is not tolerated. They are well tolerated and may offer advantages in targeted formulations or for populations that need low-dose, side effect-free NAD support. But their elevation above niacin is not rooted in consistent clinical superiority. It is rooted in commercial narrative, pricing dynamics, and the desire to create markets around newer, more exclusive molecules. In truth, the question should not be NR versus NMN versus niacin, but rather, which molecule is best suited to a given physiological state, tissue target, or therapeutic goal? And in that more honest frame, niacin deserves far more credit. Its capacity to restore NAD across multiple tissues, bypass compromised salvage pathways, engage anti-inflammatory receptors, and improve cardiovascular markers remains unmatched in scope. It is not obsolete, it is undervalued. In conclusion, the supplement industry's relative silence on niacin is unlikely to be accidental. It reflects a deliberate economic strategy to favor patentable, marketable compounds over scientifically equivalent, low-cost alternatives. Niacin is not just the overlooked member of the B3 family. It is a case study in how commercial forces can shape scientific narratives, even in the face of decades of evidence. To dismiss it is not just short-sighted, it's scientifically unjust.